The late afternoon sun cast golden ripples across Lake Morrison as I stood on the wraparound deck of the craftsman-style lake house. The property had been on the market for 3 weeks, a rare gem with 200 feet of pristine waterfront, original 1920s architecture, and enough land for privacy. I'd scheduled this showing 2 days ago, intending to view it alone. Then Mom had called. "Sarah and I are coming to the showing," she'd announced, not asked. "She's been looking for a lake property, and this one sounds perfect for her family." I should have said no, should have rescheduled. But some part of me, the part that still hoped for basic respect, had agreed. Now I watched my younger sister Sarah move through the house like she already owned it, trailing her fingers along the custom built-ins, while Mom followed with her phone out taking videos for Sarah's husband. The kitchen would need updating, Sarah said, opening and closing the vintage glass front cabinets. "These are charming, but I'd want something more modern. Maybe white shaker style." Linda Morris, the listing agent, smiled professionally. "The bones of the house are exceptional. The original craftsmanship is quite rare. Sarah deserves this, not you," Mom said suddenly, turning to face me directly. "She has 3 children who would actually use a lake house. You're alone. What would you do with all this space?" The words hung in the air. Linda's smile faltered, uncertainty crossing her face as she glanced between us. "I think both properties are lovely," Linda said carefully. "Perhaps we should continue the tour." "No, this needs to be said." Mom's voice carried the same tone she'd used throughout my childhood, the one that meant the decision was already made, and my opinion was irrelevant. "Jessica, you've always been practical. Practical people don't need luxury properties. Sarah has a family to think about. She deserves something special." Sarah had moved to the wall of windows overlooking the lake, already measuring the space with her hands. "I'm thinking new furniture for the whole main level. That corner would be perfect for a reading nook. The kids would love it." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through what looked like Pinterest boards of lake house interiors. "Mom, what do you think about sage green for the exterior? I saw this amazing color on another craftsman." I nodded silently, pulling out my own phone. While they debated paint colors, I opened my camera and began photographing the property. Not casual snapshots, detailed documentation. The foundation, the roof structure, the distance between properties, the private dock, the boathouse. "Are you even listening?" Mom's sharp voice cut through my focus. "I'm listening," I said quietly, taking another photo of the property line markers. "Then you understand. This house should go to Sarah." Linda cleared her throat. "Mrs. Thompson, I should clarify. The purchase process doesn't quite work that way. Multiple parties can submit offers, and the seller reviews. Jessica won't be submitting an offer." Mom's tone made it a command, not a statement. "Will you, Jessica?" I lowered my phone, meeting her gaze. 28 years of similar moments flashed through my mind. The college fund that went entirely to Sarah. The car they bought her for high school graduation, while I worked 3 jobs. The down payment help for her first house while I rented a studio apartment. "We'll see," I said simply. Sarah laughed, the sound carrying across the open concept living space. "Look at this dock." She'd moved to the back deck, leaning against the railing. "We could get a boat, maybe a pontoon for family days." "Mom, you'd come out every weekend, right?" "Of course." Mom joined her, both of them gazing at the water like it already belonged to them. "The grandchildren would have such wonderful summers here." I continued my documentation. The adjacent properties, the shared beach area, the community amenities. Linda watched me with growing curiosity but said nothing. "I'm calling David," Sarah announced, FaceTiming her husband. "Baby, you have to see this place. It's absolutely perfect." While she gushed into her phone, showing him every corner, I pulled Linda aside. "What else is for sale in this development?" Linda blinked. "The development. Morrison Lakefront Estates. This is property 12, according to the plat map. What else is available?" Her professional mask slipped into genuine interest. "Several properties, actually. The development is 43 homes total, built between 1920 and 1985. About 8 are currently listed, and I know of at least 6 more where the owners have mentioned selling soon. Can you send me that information?" All of it listed properties, owners considering selling, development HOA structure, commercial marina at the north end. That's quite a bit of research. Linda's eyes sharpened. Are you in real estate development? Investment management? I'd like the packet by tonight, if possible. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll have it to you by 6. Jessica. Mom's voice carried an edge. Stop bothering Miss Morris and come say goodbye to Sarah. She has to pick up the kids. Sarah was practically glowing as she hugged Mom. I'm calling our lender tomorrow. With our pre-approval we should be able to move quickly. Don't worry about the offer, Mom said. Your father and I discussed it. We'll help with the down payment. Consider it an early inheritance. Early inheritance. Early inheritance. The words shouldn't have stung anymore, but they did. Sarah turned to me, her expression somewhere between pity and triumph. You understand, right, Jess? You're always so logical. This makes sense for a family. I smiled. Congratulations on finding a place you love. After they left, Linda and I stood in the silence of the empty house. Off the record, she said quietly. That was incredibly uncomfortable. I apologize. Not your fault. I moved through the house one more time, checking sightlines and structural elements. This property, if someone made a cash offer above asking, could it close quickly? Cash? Linda's eyebrows rose. With inspection and title work. Possibly 10 days. Make it 7. That's aggressive. But possible, she considered. For the right buyer, with the right offer. Yes, good. I'll need information on every property in the development. Not just what's listed. Tax records, ownership history, mortgage situations. Can you get that? That's a significant research request. I met her eyes. I pay for quality work. If you can have comprehensive data by tomorrow morning, I'll make it worth your time. Say 5,000 for the research packet. Linda's expression shifted from confusion to sharp calculation. Who do you work for? Myself, primarily. You're a private investor, among other things. She pulled out her iPad. I'll have everything by 8 a.m. That evening, I sat in my downtown loft, the one Mom thought was a sad little apartment, and reviewed Linda's preliminary packet. Morrison Lakefront Estates was more interesting than I'd expected. 43 properties total, 8 currently listed, 6 more with owners considering selling. The development had been built by the Morrison family starting in the 1920s, with lots sold off gradually over decades. No single entity had ever owned more than 3 properties simultaneously. The HOA was loose, mostly focused on shared beach maintenance and dock regulations. Estate. No commercial development allowed except the existing marina at the north end, which was separately owned. I opened my laptop and pulled up my investment portfolio. The real one, not the modest retirement account I'd mentioned once to Mom, which she'd dismissed as cute. Barrett Capital Management. My firm. 12 years of careful building, starting with a small inheritance from my grandmother, the only family member who'd believed I was worth investing in. She'd left me $50,000 when I was 20, with a note. Don't tell your mother, build something that matters. I turned that $50,000 into $127 million in assets under management. Real estate comprised about 40% of the portfolio. Residential developments, commercial properties, mixed-use projects, all held through various LLCs and trust structures, all completely invisible to my family, who still thought I worked some boring finance job. My phone buzzed. Linda Morris, I'm sending over the full packet now, she said. But I wanted to call, because, Jessica, are you planning what I think you're planning? What do you think I'm planning? Oh. The entire development. You want to buy all of it. I smiled at the lake view from my floor-to-ceiling windows. Send me the packet. Let's talk tomorrow. By midnight I had a complete picture. Morrison Lakefront Estates represented approximately $67 million in total property value at current market rates. 8 properties actively listed for $12.3 million combined. 6 more that could likely be acquired for another $9 million. The remaining 29 ranged from elderly owners who might welcome cash offers to young families with variable financial situations. Oh. The marina property was the wild card, owned by the Morrison Family Trust, but operated at a loss for the past 3 years. Commercial waterfront was valuable, but the current operators were struggling. I made notes until 3 a.m., building out the acquisition strategy. Then I sent a message to my attorney David Kim and my acquisition specialist, Patricia Torres. Conference call, 7 a.m., time-sensitive opportunity. Need structure for multi-property acquisition, liability protection, and fast closing capacity. Budget, $75 million. The next morning, I met Linda at a coffee shop near the lake. She arrived with a leather portfolio that looked expensive and well organized. I've never put together a packet like this, she admitted, sliding it across the table. Every property, every owner, every detail I could find. Tax situations, mortgage records, recent sales comps, even some personal information about sellers that might help negotiations. I flipped through it. The work was exceptional, detailed, organized, insightful. The 5,000, I said. Already sent. She leaned forward. Jessica, this is a massive undertaking. Most of these owners don't even know each other well. Convincing them all to sell, coordinating closings, managing the HOA transition. That's why I need the best local agent. I met her eyes. I'm offering you exclusive representation on every purchase, standard commission structure, but with a $50,000 bonus for coordinating the entire acquisition within 60 days. Her coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. 60 days. I need the Lake House property 12 closed within 7 days. Cash offer 20% above asking. As is purchase. Can you make that happen? Your sister will submit an offer through her lender, which requires appraisal, inspection, financing approval. She'll take at least 30 days, probably more. Linda's expression shifted from shock to understanding to something like admiration. You're cutting her off before she can even compete. I'm making a business decision. I pulled out my phone, showing her the LLC structure David had prepared that morning. Barrett Capital will be the purchasing entity. I need you to contact every owner in the development, not simultaneously, strategically. Start with the 8 listed properties, make competitive cash offers, then move to the 6 considering selling. By the time word spreads, I want momentum. This is unprecedented. This is business. Are you in? She stared at the portfolio, then at me. Your family doesn't know what you do they? They know I work in finance. But not this. She gestured at the multi-million-dollar acquisition strategy laid out between us. Not that you're the Barrett in Barrett Capital. They've never asked. Linda's laugh was short and sharp. Oh, this is going to be something. She extended her hand. I'm in. Let's buy you a lakefront. The offer on property 12 went in that afternoon. $890,000. Cash for a house listed at $725,000. Seller had been hoping for $750,000, maybe $775,000 in a bidding war. Linda called me at 6 p.m. They accepted. 7-day close as is. You just bought your first Morrison Lakefront property. First of many. What about the others? 3 more accepted offers tonight. Properties 5, 18 and 31. All cash, all quick closes.
Please.
Word is starting to spread that there's a serious buyer in the market. Good. Accelerate the timeline. I want offers on every listed property by tomorrow night. Over the next 4 days, the machine I'd built moved with precision. David structured 7 different LLCs, all ultimately controlled by Barrett Capital, but appearing to be separate entities. Patricia coordinated inspections, titles and closings with military efficiency. Linda became my eyes and ears in the development, tracking which owners were interested, which were hesitant, which needed different approaches. By day 5, I owned 11 properties. By day 6, 14. Sarah called on day 7, her voice tight with stress. Jess, something weird is happening. Our lender is taking forever, and now our agent says there are multiple offers on the lake house. She's recommending we increase our offer, but we're already stretching our budget. That's tough, I said, reviewing closing documents for properties 23 and 24.
Oh.
Real estate is competitive. Mom is furious. She thinks the sellers are playing games. I don't know, this sounds crazy, but you work in finance. Do you know anyone who could help us get financing faster? Sarah, you're already pre-approved. The process takes time. But we found it first. We were there. We picked out paint colors. It's not fair that someone else could just swoop in with more money. I thought about every time she'd gotten first choice growing up. Every advantage handed to her while I'd worked for scraps. Every moment Mom had made it clear. Sarah deserved more, simply by existing. Life isn't fair, I said quietly. Sometimes you have to accept that someone else was in a better position. She hung up frustrated. I felt nothing. That afternoon, I closed on property 12. The lake house was mine. Sarah's closing was scheduled for the following Tuesday, exactly 12 days after our tour together. She'd managed to expedite some paperwork, increase her offer to $765,000, and convinced Mom and Dad to help with a larger down payment. Linda called me Tuesday morning. She's at the title company now, with her husband and your mother. Jessica, are you sure you want me to do this? It's business, I said. But my hands were shaking. It's more than business. You're about to own 22 properties in this development, with offers pending on 8 more. You're becoming the largest landholder in Morrison Lakefront Estates. And your sister is about to find out she was never even in the running. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The title company office was in downtown Morrison, a small suite with bland corporate art and nervous energy. I arrived early, parking where I could see the entrance. At 2:47 p.m., Sarah's SUV pulled in. She got out first, smoothing her dress with hands that trembled slightly with excitement. Her husband David followed, checking his phone. Then Mom emerged from the back seat, holding her purse like a shield. They disappeared inside. I waited 5 minutes, then entered through the side door. Linda met me in the hallway. They're in conference room A, she whispered. Karen, the closing agent, knows you're here. She's prepared. And property 18, closed this morning. You officially own 22. I straightened my blazer and walked to conference room B, which shared a wall with room A. Linda had arranged this deliberately. I could hear everything. Sarah's voice carried clearly. This is really happening. I can't believe we're actually buying a lake house. Mom, you deserve this, sweetheart. You've worked so hard. The husband, should I start signing? There are a lot of documents. Karen's professional voice. Actually, before we begin, I need to inform you of a development. The property has already been sold. Silence. Then Sarah, what? What do you mean sold? We have a closing appointment. We were approved. I understand your confusion, and I sincerely apologize. A cash offer was submitted on the day your offer was accepted. Cash purchases can close significantly faster, and this buyer completed all paperwork within 7 days. Mom's voice went sharp. That's unethical. We had an agreement. The sellers accepted multiple offers and had the right to choose based on terms. The cash buyer offered substantially more with 0 contingencies. Sarah sounded close to tears. Who bought it? The purchasing entity is Barrett Capital Management, LLC. I'm not at liberty to disclose. Barrett Capital. Mom's confusion was clear. I've never heard of them. Some investment company just bought my daughter's house. I stood up, smoothed my jacket one more time, and walked to conference room A. Linda opened the door. The scene froze. Sarah with tears on her cheeks. David staring at paperwork. Mom red-faced with anger. Karen, the closing agent, looking professionally apologetic. Jessica. Sarah's voice cracked. What are you doing here? I'm here for my closing. I set my portfolio on the table. Conference room B. But I heard raised voices and wanted to make sure everything was all right. Everything is not all right. Mom stood, her chair scraping back. Some investment company stole Sarah's house, bought it right out from under her with cash. Can you believe that? I can, actually. I met her eyes. That's how real estate works. Better offer, better terms. It's not right. Sarah found that house. We toured it together. You were there. I remember. Sarah wiped her eyes. Did you know about this? Your finance job. Do you know these Barrett Capital people? I know them intimately. Karen cleared her throat. Miss Thompson. Barrett, I corrected. Jessica Barrett, my professional name. The confusion on their faces would have been comical in other circumstances. I don't understand, Sarah said slowly. I pulled out my phone, opening the corporate registry information. Barrett Capital Management. Founded 12 years ago, currently managing $127 million in assets, specializing in real estate acquisition and development. I turned the screen to show the founder and CEO information. My name, my photo, my company. That's you. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Barrett Capital submitted the cash offer on property 12. We closed 7 days ago. I own the lake house. The silence that followed was profound. I could see them processing, trying to reconcile what they'd believed about my life with what I was telling them. You bought it. Mom's voice was hollow. You bought the house Sarah wanted. I bought a property I intended to purchase from the moment I scheduled the showing. You and Sarah decided to join that showing. I didn't invite you, but you didn't say anything. You let us think. I let you make assumptions. You've done my entire life. David, Sarah's husband, had picked up his phone, searching. Barrett Capital Management. Jessica, this company is worth your worth. Enough. I pulled out a chair and sat. More than enough. Sarah's tears had stopped, replaced by something harder. So what? This is revenge. You bought the house to hurt me. I bought the house because it's an excellent investment. As our properties 5, 7, 11, 13, 18, 19, 23, 24, 26, 31, 33, 36, 37, 38, 40, and 41, all of which Barrett Capital now owns. Karen's eyes widened. Linda, standing by the door, smiled slightly. Mom sat down heavily. You own multiple properties, 22, as of this morning, with offers pending on 8 more. By the end of next month, Barrett Capital will be the majority landholder in Morrison Lakefront Estates. The entire development. David's voice cracked. You're buying the entire lakefront. It's a solid investment. 43 properties, excellent location, undervalued market. The HOA structure needs reorganization, and I'm planning some improvements to the common areas. Perhaps a community center, better beach facilities. Sarah found her voice. You're insane. You can't do this. I already have. But why? Her hands were shaking. Why would you buy all of it? Just to prove something. To make me feel small. I studied my sister, younger by 3 years, favored since birth, genuinely confused why her world wasn't unfolding as expected. Sarah, do you remember when I graduated college? You were a sophomore. What does that have to? You called me from school, upset because your roommate was being difficult. Do you remember what I was doing when you called? She shook her head. I was working my 3rd shift of the day. I'd been awake for 22 hours, because I was working overnight security and morning retail, with classes in between. I'd just gotten notice that my student loan payment was going up, and you called crying because your roommate borrowed your sweater. Jessica, I told you it would be okay. I talked you through your crisis and then went to my next shift, because that's what I did. I worked. I solved problems. I built something from nothing while you were handed everything. Mom's face had gone pale. That's not fair. We helped you. With what exactly? The college fund that went entirely to Sarah. The car you bought her. The down payment for her first house. The early inheritance you were planning to give her for this lake house. I let the words sit in the air. I don't blame Sarah for taking what was offered, but I stopped waiting for equal treatment a long time ago. So this is punishment, Sarah said bitterly. No, this is business. I stood gathering my portfolio. Barrett Capital identified an opportunity and executed on it. The fact that you happen to want one property in this development is coincidental. Coincidental. Mom's voice rose. You were there with us. You saw how much she loved it. I saw someone assume something was already theirs before doing the work to secure it. That's not how the world works. Karen cleared her throat gently. If we're finished here, Miss Barrett has her own closing to attend to. I moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, there are still properties available in other developments around the lake. Linda can provide recommendations if you're still looking. I don't want another property. Sarah's voice broke. I wanted that one. The one we saw together. The one I picked paint colors for. Then you should have made a better offer. I left them sitting in that conference room and walked to conference room B, where Patricia Torres waited with documents for properties 39 and 42. Two more acquisitions that pushed me closer to complete ownership of Morrison Lakefront Estates. As I signed document after document, I could hear muffled voices through the wall. Sarah crying, Mom's sharp tone, David trying to mediate. The sound of people whose assumptions had been shattered. Linda appeared with coffee. Property 42 is your 24th acquisition, 24 out of 43. You're over halfway. What about the Morrison Family Trust? The marina property. I have a meeting with them Thursday. They're interested in discussing a sale. The marina has been a financial burden. Good. I signed the final page, making property 42 officially mine. Keep pushing. I want the full development by the end of the month. As I left the title company, I passed conference room A. The door was open now, and I could see Sarah slumped in her chair. Mom on the phone, presumably with Dad. David reading something on his phone with a stunned expression. They still didn't understand, might never understand. The lake house was never about revenge. It was about refusing to disappear into the role they'd assigned me. The invisible one, the practical one, the one who didn't deserve beautiful things or big dreams. I'd spent 12 years building an empire they never noticed. Now I owned their dream, and 23 others just like it. And I was just getting started. The story spread through Morrison like wildfire. Within 3 days, everyone in the development knew that some investment company was buying up properties. Within a week, they knew it was one person. By the second week, enough details had leaked that local news picked it up. Mystery investor buys. Majority of historic lakefront development. The article included speculation about my plans. Some feared I'd tear down the historic houses and build condos. Others worried about a corporate takeover of a beloved community. The HOA president requested a meeting. I invited them to Property 12, the lake house Sarah had wanted. Linda had arranged for basic furniture, and I'd hired a local restoration company to begin careful updates that honored the original craftsman style, while modernizing essential systems. 5 HOA board members arrived at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, led by Patricia Morrison, granddaughter of the original developer, owner of Property 3. Miss Barrett, she said formally, shaking my hand. Thank you for meeting with us. As you can imagine, the community has concerns. I'd set up coffee and refreshments on the deck overlooking the water. The late spring evening was perfect. Warm breeze, golden light, the sound of water lapping at the dock. I appreciate you coming, I said. I know the acquisition pace has been alarming. Let me explain my vision. For the next hour, I walked them through my plans. No demolition. Every historic property would be preserved and restored. The 7 newer properties would be updated, but not replaced. I planned to establish a conservation easement protecting the natural shoreline. The common areas would be enhanced with native plantings and better accessibility. The marina would be upgraded and reopened as a community amenity, rather than a commercial operation. You want to protect it? Patricia's voice carried surprise. Not develop it? This development is special because of what it is. A collection of historic homes in a natural setting. Destroying that would destroy the value. Another board member, Thomas, frowned. But you're an investment company. Investment companies want returns. Returns come from increasing value, which comes from preservation and careful enhancement. A well-maintained historic lakefront community is worth far more than a generic condo development. They exchanged glances. Patricia leaned forward. Miss Barrett, if I may ask, why this development? Why Morrison Lakefront? I considered how much to share. Then decided truth served better than evasion. I toured Property 12 with my family. My mother and sister decided it should go to my sister because she has children and I don't. Because she deserves nice things and I'm practical. They assumed I couldn't afford it and didn't matter enough to consider. I met Patricia's eyes. They were wrong on both counts. Understanding dawned across their faces. Thomas actually smiled. So you bought the whole development. I bought an excellent investment that happened to include the property my family decided I didn't deserve. Patricia laughed, a genuine delighted sound. That's the most spectacular response I've ever heard. Miss Barrett, I think we're going to get along just fine. By the time they left, I had the HOA's cautious support. Patricia stayed behind, walking the property with me as the sun set. The original Morrison estate was here, she said, pointing north along the shoreline. My great-grandfather built it in 1919, started selling parcels in the 20s when the crash hit. By the 50s most of the estate was subdivided. She paused. No one's tried to reunify it since then. I never thought I'd see someone with the vision and resources to try. You still own property 3, family home. I'll never sell. Good. Every development needs roots. People who remember the history. She studied me in the fading light. Your family, have they reached out since the news broke? No. Will they? Eventually. When they want something. And will you help them? I thought about that, about Mom's voice saying Sarah deserves this. Not you. About a lifetime of being dismissed and overlooked. I'll be fair, I said finally. Which is more than they were. The call came on a Saturday morning, 4 weeks after the lake house closing. I was at Property 27, meeting with the restoration architect, when Mom's name appeared on my phone. I almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won out. Jessica. Her voice was strained, formal. We need to talk. I'm listening. Not on the phone. Can you meet us for lunch? Your father and I, Sarah too. We need to discuss this situation. Which situation? A sharp intake of breath. You know exactly which situation. The lake house, the properties, this entire thing you've done. I'm available Tuesday at noon. Rosario's downtown. We were thinking somewhere more private. Rosario's or not at all, Mom. Your choice. Silence. Then fine. Tuesday at noon. She hung up without saying goodbye. Linda called 30 seconds later. Property 41 just accepted. And the Morrison Family Trust agreed to terms on the marina. Jessica, you now own 37 of 43 properties. 6 more to go. 3 are definite no's. Patricia Morrison, the Chen family in Property 8, and the Rodriguezes in Property 19. They're multi-generational owners. Deeply rooted. I respect that. What about the other 3? Still negotiating. Should have answers by end of week. By Tuesday morning, Barrett Capital owned 39 of 43 properties in Morrison Lakefront Estates. The story had grown beyond local news. Regional papers picked it up, then a business journal. Millennial investor creates private lakefront empire. Ran with details about my company and acquisition strategy. My phone had been ringing constantly with interview requests, other investment opportunities, and people from my past suddenly remembering we were friends. I ignored most of it and arrived at Rosario's. At 11:55 a.m. Mom, Dad and Sarah sat in a corner booth, looking uncomfortable. Dad stood when I approached. His tell for serious conversations. Jessica. He hugged me stiffly. Thank you for meeting us. Of course. We settled into awkward silence, while the waiter took drink orders. Mom's hands were clasped tightly on the table. Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad cleared his throat repeatedly. Finally, Mom spoke. We've been reading the articles about your company, your success. Barrett Capital has had a good few years. A good few years. Dad's voice cracked slightly. Jessica, you're managing over $100 million. You own 40 properties. 39, 43 total in the development. I own 39. Sarah finally looked up. You did this to hurt me. No, I did this to build something meaningful. You were simply in the way. In the way. Her voice rose. That house meant everything to me. Then you should have secured it. Made a better offer. Moved faster. Wanted it more than you wanted the convenience of your parents' money. Mom's face flushed. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 28 years being told I don't matter as much as my sister. What's not fair is watching every advantage go to her, while I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. What's not fair is being dismissed as practical, Because I didn't perform my ambitions for your approval. We didn't know, Dad said quietly, about your company, your success. You never told us. You never asked. I kept my voice level. Every time we talked, you asked about Sarah's kids, her house, her life. You asked me if I was still doing that finance thing like it was a hobby. Not once did you ask what I was actually building. You could have told us. Mom insisted. Why? So you could tell me it wasn't as important as Sarah's life. So you could explain why her needs still came first. I built Barrett Capital in silence. Because silence was the only space you gave me. The waiter arrived with our drinks, sensing the tension and retreating quickly. Sarah's hands were shaking. So what now? You have the lake house. You have the whole development. Are you happy? Did you win? This isn't about winning. I pulled out my tablet, opening the development plans. It's about building something that matters. Look, I showed them the restoration plans, the conservation easement, the community center design, the upgraded marina, plans for a foundation that would provide programming for local kids, sailing lessons, environmental education, water safety. You're going to keep them. Dad leaned forward, studying the designs. The houses? Of course. Why would I destroy something beautiful? But the investment return comes from preservation and enhancement, not demolition. These properties will appreciate significantly with proper restoration and community development. Mom stared at the plans. You're creating a legacy. I'm creating what I wanted to create. A place that honors history while serving the future. Sarah's voice was small. The house. Property 12. Are you going to live there? Sometimes. It'll be my primary residence when I'm not traveling for work. We could have been neighbors. I met her eyes. You assumed you'd get it without effort. That's not how anything works, Sarah. Not houses, not success, not respect. I know that now. She looked down. I've been thinking about what you said, about your college years. I didn't know it was that hard. You didn't ask. I should have. The admission hung in the air, small but genuine. Dad cleared his throat. What you've built, Jessica. Barrett Capital. This development vision. It's remarkable. We're proud of you. You're proud now that you know it's impressive. You weren't proud when you thought I was just working a boring finance job. That's not. He stopped. Reconsidered. You're right. We should have been proud of you regardless. We should have asked more questions. Paid more attention. We failed you. Mom's eyes glistened. I failed you. I favored Sarah because she was easier, more emotional, more open. You were so self-sufficient. I told myself you didn't need as much. But that was an excuse. I should have seen you, really seen you.